Okay, the forest setting. This is an fairly advanced setting, difficulty level 5. So a lot of that difficulty is just cutting it out, which I have already done, so I spare you that. I've also scored along the places where score lines have been indicated. So, first thing we do on the forest is we create this central trunk, okay? And we're going to want to fold so that these glue tabs are facing down. And we're going to fold along the places we scored to create something that is at the top flat, and at the bottom creates a hexagonal rounded tree trunk shape. Not terribly rounded. The sides are all flat, but it's more round than completely flat, which is what the top will be. Should be, if you do it right. Okay? So, first bend all the parts. Glue down F18. And glue down F19. Just over the top. Okay? And that provides the tree trunk. And this tree trunk is what's going to make sure this whole thing pops up right. So get it right, get it good, make sure it's glued in the right spaces before you glue everything else down. And then start gluing stuff down. So F1 and F2, those can be glued now. And the ground texture on this should line up. So take a good look at it and see if you can do the little, it's a little bit like like a Where's Waldo almost. Just find the patterns for where they line up and glue it down so that they line up perfectly. And that's going to happen a lot. It's kind of hard. You're going to have to look for it. It's a level 5. If you can't handle this, you should go back and do a level 1. Okay? Or something. Alright, 1 and 2. Glued into place. Next, we are gluing F3 and 4, which will create the main canopy and attach the canopy to, and then we attach the canopy to the thing. So the main canopy is this piece, okay? And it should be folded so that the plain side is down. We're going to need to see all these glue spots so that we can make it work, okay? And it's going to be glued first into a table-like structure and then bent directly down the middle, and this piece is going to flip up so that F27 can be glued here on the side of this, okay? On the side of the main trunk. So we glue F4 here, F3 here, and F27 in the middle after this has been slotted up through there, okay? And again, ground texture should line up. And really, other than the initial cutting everything out, I don't feel like this this setting is really, it's not too hard after that. This cutting everything out though is really a beast, so give yourself some time to do that. If you want to round off the edges of the leaves, really you can. There's no place where the leaves need to fit together perfectly on the edges, but I kind of have a thing where I have to cut out around all the leaves. That's, I don't know. I think I might be a little bit crazy. So again, this texture on here should line up as well. This is the part where you want to glue it and kind of just tenderly hold it in place while you count to 20. In the meantime, I'll tell you a short story. When I was 9, I remember being in 4th grade thinking, this was the best, you know? I could be 9 forever. I don't know if I've felt like that since then. I've always kind of been like, well, let's grow older. I might cut all that out. Anyway, so that's glued in place now, and now would be a great time for you to test folding it up. Make sure that that works. If you've glued things right, it should work perfectly. And then pop off the middle. Just like I knew it would. Son of a gun. Alright, so we'll re-glue that in place, let it sit for a while we do other stuff. Next, we are gluing on F5 through F8. So, F5 is this piece here. There should be a little tree that goes in that spot. So find the little tree. Ah! Little tree. Make sure your arrows line up on the ground. You don't have to line up in spot, but they do need to line up in direction. Match your ground textures. Pop that on down. And then we're also gluing 6, 7, and 8. So there's 6. We should have something that's like a tree trunk for that. Aha! Tree trunk section. Alright. And again, match up the ground texture. Boom, bam. Then we're matching up F8. Is that right? F5 through F8. So we'll do F8, and then we'll go back and do F7 because I forgot to do that one. Again, we're looking at the ground textures. Taking a good long look at how things might line up. And then we're gluing them down. F7. Okay. Now alright. So those are glued down. Glue slot the foliage labeled with F32 onto the trunk of F9 with the F32 facing upwards and towards the outside of the setting. So, this is the piece with F9, okay? We're going to slot the piece labeled F32 onto that. This piece has 33 and 34, so it's going to look a lot like that. And there should also be a piece that goes in between them. Aha, here we go. So, but that's not F32. Aha, this is F32. So we slot it on there with F32 facing down and out. Okay? So that's going there, that's going there, and then we glue down F9. Okay? So that it looks like that. And we want to match up the ground texture there, and we do so perfectly. Okay, that is that. So now we move on to the next step, which is that F9 through F17 to attach parts to the ground. F9, F10, which is a little piece, this piece. Nope. F10, is that you? Yes, it is. Okay, perfect. So, this is F10. Slap it on down there. Match it up with the ground texture. Glue down F10. 11 and 12 are also on a very small piece. These small pieces are necessary, I promise you. They make sure that things pop up the way they're supposed to pop up. And, okay, that's a tricky one. Match it up with the ground texture. Then we're gluing down 13 and 14, I believe. F13 goes here. And F14 is facing out the other side. And it looks a lot like a small bush. If I do recall. Yep, there we go. F14. Okay, so we've got those in place. And now we do 16, well, 15, 16, and 17. And those should look a lot like this. Here we go. 15 and 17 are on the same part. So we'll glue those down at the same time. Again, keep looking at the ground texture until you see where it lines up. We'll get there eventually. You'll see it and you'll say, oh, I see that before? The answer, because you weren't looking hard enough. Look harder. Alright. And then F16 should look like an even smaller sort of a bush. Ah, there we go. If you're not finding a particular number, flip them all over, look at the other side. Because it's probably on the back. Okay, so we've done those, F9 through F17. Now we glue F20 and 21. F20 is the piece that goes on top of this tree. Kind of adds the main foliage to the top of this tree, and you just kind of stick it on there in the middle. That'll do it. And will it line up perfectly with the texture on there? Not particularly, no. What you want to do pay attention to is that when you fold it flat, and watch it when you fold things flat, because not everything's in the right space right now. It's okay. But when you fold it flat, it should come even with the top of this. It shouldn't, that piece shouldn't protrude past that. So just line it up with the top of that and glue it on. And 21 is this piece here. And that should actually line up with the texture pretty well. So, line it up, glue it, hold it, let it go. F20 and 21, glue F30 through 32. And that is tough to find. No idea where those are. Oh, here we go. 30 and 30 through 32. And that's going to be, remember this this donut ring piece we glued on? That's going to be glued onto this piece now. As close as you can get it. I mean, as close as it lines up. It might line up better for some people, depending on how they glued things, but as long as it's on there in any form, it's going to do what it has been intended to do. So there we go. And then F30 and 31, we're gluing on this big bush piece. Make sure the middle lines up with where this piece is bending. And while the texture may or may not line up, really not too crucial either way. This is a very forgiving section in particular, so it's going to let you do your thing. It's going to be okay with that. Okay, and then glue F22 through F26. So what that's going to mean is F22 and F23 are on this part, and you're going to slot pieces together, you're going to slot pieces through these other pieces to glue these on, okay? So if you're just gluing it on there without looking, it's not going to work. So a lot of pieces are going to go together like this. They're going to slot through other pieces, and that's what's going to enable them to be able to be pulled up at all. And they'll match the texture on the other side, usually to some degree. This will be the same leaf patterns. And you'll be able to line up the spots and glue it on. And then we're also gluing, so that was 22 and 23. We need 24, 25, and 26. So let's figure out which ones those are. 24 and 25. Aha! So 24, 25, and 26 are going to glue this top piece down. So first let's glue F24 to its spot here on the back. Then we're going to glue 25 and 26. At this point, don't worry about lining up textures so much as making sure you're gluing things to a texture that has the same texture and getting it about the right spot. Okay, so next we're gluing F40, which is this piece here. It's a tricky piece because it's being folded over before it goes on. Okay, so just fold it so it makes a little flat table there. And then we're gluing F28. So what F28 does is it takes a tree and it grows it out of this spot. And so there's not going to be a matchup on the foliage, but you will end up with a nice little tree growing here. So just glue it on there so it looks good. And then F33 through F39. Now those ones are tricky. That's the piece, there's a piece that goes here, creates a bridge between these two trees, and pulls them up so that they pop up properly. And so we got our two end pieces here, and those are going to slot through here, then glue onto the middle. Okay? So 33 and 34, you can glue them before you slot them. Probably shouldn't have, because it tends to create the chance that you're going to accidentally smear glue into the wrong spots. And again, the texture should be pretty close, but in some cases you're gluing front to back or back to front, and you just can't count on the textures to line up 100%. So look at how they work together, glue them to the spots, and make sure they work. And with the leaves, it's going to be tough to tell if they line up anyway. So you can see they're glued together to form sort of continuously these two trees, their parts here. So that part is right in there. The next part we're worried about is '41. Okay, yep, 38 and 39. So 38 has these two spots, and you don't have to worry about slotting 38 anywhere. You can really just glue it down and then call it good. There's a place where I didn't cut off all the white. There, so go back in and make sure there's no extra white places. And so that goes there. And then you slot 39 in. Right there. Okay, then it says glue 41 through 51. So we got 10 spots to glue. Let's take a look at... no, that's not... yeah, that's 10 spots. Okay, so spot number 41 is right here. It's a 3-part piece. Well, 3-part glue down. You want to glue it down so that you make sure you leave slots so that you can glue 42 and 43 into place. Then we're gluing 44 and 45. It's 49 and 50. This is 44 and 45. $49.50. And again, with these ones, you just want to make sure that they're lining up with the tabs. You don't really need to be that concerned about whether or not they're lining up exactly with the foliage. If you are, I think that there's a pretty good chance they line up, but it might be detrimental to you in the long run, mental health wise, to do so. And it looks like I managed to forget 37 at some point. So that's a pretty easy spot. Just goes right down. A similar slotted place situation right here. Slots through there. Glues on there. Makes a happy little tree. $51, which goes right there. And then also managed to skip 47 and 48. And last, although I don't know if in the instructions it goes last, 46, which is this little branch out piece here that just adds a little more interest to this bush. Alright, so that's all glued together now. We're going to let it dry a couple seconds before we fold it up. Let's see how it goes. This one, you do want to make sure you line the textures up when you're doing the ground. That's important. Part because a slight angle difference could make the difference between a part really working and really not. And if you're like me and you've got a little extra, maybe you've messed up in a spot, no shame in that. You can grab some of your extra leaf material from nearby. Got all this riverbank texture. Cut out a swath of leaf material. And glue it over the spot where you messed up. No one will ever be the wiser. Okay? So, there's a lot of extra material in these kits. Anywhere you mess up, you can easily cover it with another texture or something. So. Anyway, that is the pop-up forest